you for joining us today. Dave is actually going to be our MC. So Dave, I'm going to hand it over to you. We have a few more that I'm expecting, but I also want to be mindful of people's time. So
excellent, Jessica. I think there's no need to punish the punctual, right? We'll jump on and get going. Coming to you all live here from 3,000 feet behind me, as you can see. So it's a lovely place to facilitate this conversation at noontime today with all of you. So again, I think we do have a lot of material that we'd like to share with our legislative partners, and then we want to also reserve time for conversation and discussion around those items as well. So if it is okay with everybody, it looks like everyone is fairly labeled on their Zoom screens. So I will take the chair's prerogative and forego 10 minutes of introductions while we're here on Zoom and just jump into the heart of the matter. But I want to thank all of our legislators for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us and be able to hear from some of our stakeholders at Healthy Lamoille Valley and our staff. So without further ado, Jessica, I believe you're first up.
Thank you, Dave. So I'm Jessica Bickford. I'm the coordinator of Healthy Lamoille Valley. I think most of you know this, but to give a quick overview, Healthy Lamoille Valley is a coalition of individuals and organizations working together to prevent and reduce youth substance misuse and promote substance-free youth activities. To accomplish this, we identify risk and protective factors and use a strategic prevention framework to implement evidence-based strategies which target needs that are shown by our local data. We know that when community and family risk factors are high, then youth use increases. These risk factors include things like ease of access to the substances, low perception of harm, and marketing. Likewise, when we increase protective factors, substance use decreases. So a few protective factors include community norms that promote community-wide substance-free events, youth feeling like the rules related to substances are enforced equitably and consistently, youth having strong community involvement and relationships with adults. There are also many others. We recognize that prevention needs to occur on all levels. Our work is based on the Vermont prevention model, where work is done with the individual, family, organizations, schools, as well as community and state partners. We are currently funded through the Vermont Department of Health Tobacco Prevention Grant and Prevention Infrastructure Grants. Also, Centers for Disease Control Drug-Free Communities Grant, private foundation funding, and individual and business donations. We currently have over 100 members in many sectors, including law enforcement, recovery, business, medical, mental health, civic groups, education, youth and parents, town leadership, and arts organizations. Why does this work matter? To see this, we need to take a quick look at the data. We have a full data presentation that we'll email out later, but today we don't really have time for that, so I'll just give a few highlights. So our data right now that we're using is from the 2019 YRBS data, and we actually anticipate that these numbers have increased due to youth mental health struggles related to COVID. Also due to the popularity of vaping products and due to the norming of cannabis use in our state. Lamoille youth are using substance at rates that are at or higher than the state norms. It's also important to note that in 2018, Vermont ranked #1 in the country for youth cannabis use among 12 to 17-year-olds. Lamoille area youth are using substances early. 10% of middle schoolers used alcohol before age 11. And when you look at middle schoolers, and by age 11, you're thinking about fifth graders using alcohol, so 10%. 2% of those same students used cannabis, and also 2% used tobacco before age 11. When we look at high schoolers, they were asked about their substance use before age 13. So 16% of our Lamoille County high schoolers report using alcohol before age 13. 8% used marijuana or cannabis by age 13, and 9% used tobacco products. This is concerning because youth that use substances before the age of 15 are 6 times more likely to develop a substance use disorder later in life. And when surveyed those in struggling with substance use disorders as adults, 90% of those started using by the time they were 18. So this work is really important to focus on our youth. Also, we can look at the last 30-day use for middle schoolers. 9% used alcohol in the last 30 days. 3% of those binged, or 3% of those using were binge drinking. Cannabis is at 8%. Smoking tobacco is 3%, and vaping tobacco products is 8%. And then it jumps significantly when we get to our high schoolers. 33% of our high schoolers used alcohol in the last 30 days. 16% binge drank, and that's really concerning because binge drinking is often where the high risk behavior is. So the drinking and driving, the high sexual assault, those sort of things. 28% use cannabis in the last 30 days, and this is really concerning because of the high THC concentrations we're seeing across the country, impacts to youth mental health and suicidality from those high potency THC. 10% smoked tobacco and 29% vaped. And again, this is the 2019 data, and we do anticipate that there's been some increases there. Back to you, Dave.
Thank you, Jessica. I appreciate that. And I think we'd just like to note that although those data points certainly seem alarming and are reasons for concern, we also remain hopeful. And we remain hopeful because we've realized a lot of success in building certain partnerships and adding to our infrastructure. So I want to just segue now to a couple of our staff members who are going to share a few of the initiatives that are making a difference in prevention work. So Em, I believe you're up first.
Yeah, so hello, everybody. I'm Delaney. I'm the communications coordinator for Healthy Lamoille Valley, and I'm going to share my screen with you. So recently we made some updates to our website, just mainly improving the look of it and the navigation. So I just want to alert you to some areas that you can go to get information from us. One is our resources section. We have a nice resources landing page here where you can find data, some community links, information on different substances. As you can see, we also have information for specific sectors in our coalition. And we also have a Get Involved page for people who are interested in participating in the coalition. Lets you know what we're currently working on, work groups that you can join. We also have our community planning toolkit available right here on our website, so that you can access the different versions of it to download, and also lots of resources that are associated with it, including statewide local data relevant to the toolkit. This is a page that's related to policy that might be of interest to you. And of course, we have our news and events page with what we're up to, latest coalition events. I'm going to specifically talk about our data page because this might be mostly why you're coming to our website.
Recording in progress.
This is a good source of state, local data. We've got our own community survey, parent survey. We do this every other year. For your convenience, we also have a 2-page survey highlights if you just want to get it in brief. Vermont Department of Health data can be accessed through here. Project Rabbit for license information. Might use risk behavior survey. So one thing that we want to put out there is that this is an ongoing project to be responsive to the community, the needs of the community around resources and data information. So if you are looking for something and you don't see it here, please let us know, because we're expanding this page to better serve you and other parts of the coalition. So you could drop that in the chat or email me, m@healthylamoillevalley.org. Just any time that you're like, this is my go-to resource, why isn't it here? Or gosh, I really need to find this information out. It'd be great if it was available right there. Just let us know. So like I said, we do our community and parent survey every other year. We're also surveying the community just on a regular basis, like our Green Up Day survey, our municipal leaders survey to find out where substance use is happening in the community for mapping purposes, things like that. We're also very heavily reliant on the state for data, such as the Vermont Youth Risk Behavior Survey. That data is getting a little thin on the ground right now. The YRBS has been slimmed down quite a bit the last couple of times. So we're actually seeing data gaps forming where, we will ourselves have to take on the task of surveying. Also every other year, when the YRBS is not being given in schools, we are surveying schools for core measures data. That's data that we share with the schools themselves because the sample size is just too small to share it more broadly than that. And then the other thing I just wanted to touch on, because I know time is short, is we're interested in knowing how we can best get information to you. So the website is one of those things, but would you be interested in, for instance, getting like monthly or quarterly newsletters from us with information that's tailored for you? Do you prefer personal emails? That's another thing that you can drop in the chat. Just, let us know if you've had any ideas or thoughts about that, because we're always looking for like how we can most effectively communicate with you. That's it. Back to you, Dave.
Thank you, Em. I believe next we have Brian Duda.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian. I'm the Youth Substance Prevention Coordinator, and I just want to share some successes we've had with different partners. And one of those is schools and educators in the region. So I've been sharing a lot of substance prevention curricula with schools, and they've implemented some at their schools. There's been Catch My Breath has been implemented at a few schools. That's a vaping curriculum. Also Time-Wise, that's a curriculum about leisure and helping kids choose their free time and making the best of their free time. I've created a substance prevention educators webpage, which has resources, state, local, for substance prevention and other resources, as well as all those curricula. I've gone into schools and done substance refusal skill workshops. I am in communication with schools a lot through emails, bi-monthly emails explaining what's happening, all the local resources. There's been a lot of youth engagement happening. I run a youth coalition group, and they've been doing a lot of great work in school, including helping start these listening sessions where youth share this hasn't officially happened yet at some of the schools, but they're planning on having sessions where they share like what the big concerns are at school, including with substances, providing cessation resources and other opportunities like this campaign called Live Your Why. And this campaign this year is the Live Your Why Passport Edition. So youth get a passport and earn passport stamps toward prizes for participating in free workshops and activities and events throughout the region, hosted by a variety of regional organizations. And this was created to really address the youth mental health concern and to increase connections, youth connections to their community and to their peers, especially through COVID times. And these help build the skills of mental health, physical well-being, self-expression, community connections, and resourcefulness. So through this initiative, I've partnered with local libraries, local art centers, Parks and Rec, the Recovery Center, food pantries, schools, mental and physical health providers, and connecting the activities, events that they're doing and promoting them so that local youth can participate in those activities and build connections. And then finally, we've also been meeting quarterly with the pediatricians and sharing our resources, and they've been informing a lot of our work as well. And yep, I'll pass it on to Allison and Jess.
Thanks, Brian.
Hi, everyone. I'm Allison Link, and my hat at Healthy Lamoille Valley is the Policy and Community Outreach Coordinator. And it's good to see everyone. Hi. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about our collaborations, because we really don't work in isolation. We work with so many folks around the state. So for example, earlier you heard in the data section about Project Rabbit, just kind of quickly, but that's a Department of Liquor and Lottery collaboration that we have access to compliance checks and all of our local retailers in our communities. And we also do retailer recognition, and just we're developing and further developing our connection to that department. We have very close relationships with many of them, and as well as we have monthly meetings to discuss topics related to alcohol and tobacco currently. We also are part of the umbrella organization of coalitions across the state, Prevention Works. And specifically, Jessica and I sit on a couple of those committees. Jessica sits on the steering team, and I sit on the cannabis and also the alcohol work groups. So, thinking about Act 164, Act 80, Act 70, related to current policy and what as state coalitions and with that umbrella, what we can do together. And there's a lot of work that's very active right now, as you may imagine. We're also part of Coalition for Tobacco-Free Vermont. American Lung Association hosts that. And also through the Tobacco Control Grant, we're working with our coalition partners across the state. We have many local partners, our coalitions who are across the state, who are our colleagues, are terrific partners, and we really we rely on each other. We need each other because we can't all do this alone. So there's a lot of collaborative work. You should know that things that we're creating that you may see coming out, that it's open source with our coalitions across the state, vice versa, so that we can build on each other's work. And of course, I see Michelle Salvador there in the Vermont Department of Health, and especially our work with Michelle and her colleagues and our colleagues there. We really have a lot of support across the state from the health department. So that's about our state collaborations. And there are others, but I'll cut mine there and pass back to Dave.
Great, Allison, thank you. Before we move on, I also wanted to highlight one other thing that some of you may be aware. Over the last 5 years, HLV has made a concerted effort to expand the prescription drug drop box initiative. And we're very proud to report that in the October Take Back event, combined with the year-round boxes that are housed at our local police departments and law enforcement offices, as well as the pharmacy in Cambridge, and that we collected over 6,800 pounds of prescription medication. So, you think about how much one of those little thing weighs. That's a pretty significant amount of prescription medication that was out there floating around our community and is now properly disposed of, that won't find its way into the hands of youth or others. So thank you for those of you that contribute to that program and helped us do that. And certainly if you're have any capacity to help us expand that, reach out to Jessica, for sure. So, all right. So now we want to switch gears a little bit and talk about some of the challenges. We highlighted the successes and the great things that are happening at HLV, and now we just want to talk a little bit about some of the barriers in prevention work. So I'm going to turn it over first to Michelle Salvador, who is aforementioned.
Yeah. Hi, folks. So good to see everybody. Michelle Salvador. I'm the prevention consultant for Lamoille Valley. I've been around quite a while. I've been the consultant for the region for 24 years. And so it's amazing to see all this great work that's happening that was not happening 24 years ago. So as Jessica mentioned, the work of prevention is to collect and assess data and to identify the risks in our communities that contribute to the use of substances and the risks that contribute to young people using substances early in life while the brains are still developing. Because as Jess said, the science shows us that early life use dramatically increases risk of substance dependency for those who use during that early critical period of brain development. A challenge for us in Vermont is also that our economy is very much tied to the use and access and availability of substances, which increases the risks for community members and youth. The biggest risk factors that challenge us that we address across the state and really specifically in Lamoille are a couple. One, that community laws and norms tends to support use, and that the increasing access and also the increase to access and availability of substances. So just some quick examples like use at farmers markets, events that constantly have alcohol available, advertising. There's a lot of use at youth birthday parties, just really our culture in Vermont is fairly saturated with substances. So the data shows us that when our norms support use and when there's increased access, that the age that young people begin using decreases. So that then, as we were saying, contributes to lifetime rates of substance dependency, which creates all kinds of other challenges and hardships within our communities and families. The other challenge for our community is the high rates of young people that have friends and family who use, and not having necessarily adults in their life that give them messages that they disapprove of young people using, especially, again, during that critical time during brain development. So I'm going to turn it over to some of our HLV partners, and they're going to kind of narrow in and start talking about some of the challenges that the coalition and our prevention work in Lamoille is working to address currently. I think we go to Allison first.
Thanks, Michelle.
Okay.
Yeah, so supporting our communities with changing environments and changing landscape, especially around cannabis, is a challenge. Many of you know already, and some of you were there. We had a roundtable, a partnership with us and LCPC, Lamoille County Planning Commission's Seth Jensen, and about 7 of our Lamoille Valley towns were represented, and many others requested the information. We noticed during that meeting that a lot of the municipal leaders and legislative leaders were not didn't think the community really was as informed as could be, and we are continuing to hear that. So there's been so much follow-up and TA from Stowe, Morrisville, Johnson, Cambridge. I mean, if you read the News and Citizen, you're clearly seeing some of these articles there, even collaboration and connection with Eden, Elmore. I'm at their select board meeting next week. I'm talking to Ron from Hyde Park about zoning around agriculture, Greensboro and Hardwick and the greater Hardwick area also connected. So we really now are in this mode of informed voter campaign, and that's been a big effort. You've probably seen some of that come out, and maybe Jessica, or I'll put it in the chat in a minute, but trying to help inform voters about what they're actually voting on, so that they have an understanding before they vote. And we think that's really the most important thing. You also may see Dave McAllister interviewing me, thanks to support from Green Mountain Access TV, as we're trying to hit different modalities. around this. So this definitely is, it feels a bit overwhelming of helping to inform the community about what they may be voting on or how they might be considering it, what municipalities may consider at this time because of this changing landscape and a lot of unknown. And I'm going to pass it back to Jessica.
So early on, what we are seeing lots of challenges around cannabis. Early on, looking at a real life example of prevention, looking at COVID, right? When COVID first came to Vermont, we really took a statewide focused effort at every level. People were masking, people were vaccinating, people were staying home, and our numbers, we were doing the best in the state, right? Our best in the country, really. And so that was really exciting. And it took so much work on everybody's, part, right? And, now that people are kind of laxed a little bit, we're definitely seeing numbers going up and variants are coming in. And we really like to kind of think about, that was a success for prevention, right? And it wasn't substance prevention, but it was prevention. And, when we look at, cannabis coming as a retail market, we really need to have that same approach of looking at yes, this is a legal adult use substance, but how are we going to keep our youth from using, and really come together at every level with prevention efforts. And that includes, statewide campaigns, both at parents and community members, but also education in our schools. And right now we're just not seeing that concerted effort. Which is really for us to try to put all those pieces together, which is really a challenge for staff. And we do have these great partners around the state, but we're all in the same boat of really trying to scramble to put everything together. So anything that you all can do at the state level to really have some concerted effort to support education, to support prevention curriculums in our schools would be awesome. So, and I think we're passing it back to Dave to share what he's seeing with families at Laraway.
Yeah, thanks, Jessica. I'm guess blessed to have a sort of unique perspective from a treatment provider at Laraway Youth and Family Services, but also as a volunteer coach and scout leader and parent and whatever in the community. And I just wanted to highlight a couple of things that all of you are probably aware of, because we do live in a rather small community in the state of Vermont, and probably have your own personal connections and stories to this topic. But I was just having dinner last night with a friend of mine whose kids play hockey, and my daughter's decided to take that sport up this year. And he was sharing with me that his 13-year-old stepdaughter was at home with them on an evening with a friend, and the friend came running downstairs because his stepdaughter had a sudden reaction to eating a whole bag of gummies, edibles that they came into contact with from somebody at school, and she ended up being okay. But I think this just illustrates that the access that these kids are having now from a variety of points is, not just a household problem. It's not just a parental supervision issue or values issue, which I think historically that was, I think part of the stigma and part of the narrative was that, oh, well, you're a parent who condones drinking, so that's why your kid's drinking. I don't want to be naive and suggest that there isn't some of that, but it's well beyond that now in the influence and the scope and the impact that it's had on these kids. We recently just had a young lady that we work with have to come into the custody of the state of Vermont because her mom relapsed and is overdosed and is, back into treatment, and then disclosed and realized that she was sexually assaulted several times at the hands of drug dealers and people from that community that mom was connected to feed her habit. So, I mean, this is just, I could go on and on and on, and I won't for the benefit of time. And I know most of you participate in these conversations regularly so you're aware of the impact that this problem is having on families. And I think that if you take anything away from today, is that I don't think there's one action step that is going to cure or fix the disease, the problem, but that it's a systemic issue that, you know, is only gonna get resolved through a lot of collaboration and investment and patience and time. So thank you for that. Brian, I think you wanted to add a couple of notes about the vaping challenges that exist right now.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. So a big challenge I've been hearing from all my school contacts, both at the high school and middle school level, is that vaping is a huge issue. Teachers, educators have been confiscating vapes in both middle and high school and catching kids vaping. And just wanted to point out that the device that we've been hearing most of is, they're called Loon vapes. It's a brand of vapes, and they are flavored disposable vapes. They have, and a new trend to a new type of vape is vaping salt, like salt vapes, which are just a stronger, more intense, more potent nicotine level of vape. And I'm going to put in the website, so it just kind of shares the products that are out there and what's being used among students these days.
Thanks, Brian. Appreciate that. So you heard a little bit from some of our HLV staff and steering team members. We also have some community partners that are with us who also are directly connected and observing and experiencing some of the challenges that exist. And although when we say the word prevention or substance prevention, we're generally talking about alcohol, cannabis, tobacco use, both traditional and now with vaping opportunities. But I'd like to just give a couple of minutes to each of our partners that took the time with us today, just to share one or two highlights from their work that they're doing and some trends of concern that they've noticed. So first up, I think we have our beloved sheriff, Mr. Marcoux.
Good morning, everybody. Nice to see everybody, and thank you, Dave. So I'll just give you a quick overview, I think, of what all of law enforcement is seeing here in the county. And basically, and I'll try to keep my head in the shot here. There's so much going on that we continue to have to prioritize the out-of-state drug trafficking organizations that are coming in here. And I can tell you, based on cash seizures, that this is big business right here in Lamoille County. It's tens of thousands of dollars that get seized here every year. So and we're dealing with more and more violent individuals, and certainly the human trafficking aspect of it, of drug trafficking in Lamoille County is, it's here. You've got people that become addicted, and then they're enslaved to these drug traffickers, and they're coming from anywhere from Springfield, Mass area, to Albany, to Lowell, Lawrence area. So all different parts of New England, and most of that stuff is coming from New York City. And so pretty much everything we're seeing now that gets tested is fentanyl. I think all of you are aware that there was an overdose in, I believe it was Bennington County, with a marijuana laced fentanyl. This first came out in Rhode Island a couple of years ago, I think. And quite frankly, I'm surprised that we haven't seen more of it yet here in Vermont. But I fully expect to, which is a big problem, because if you start dealing with that, then we're going to start dealing in that younger age group. So we're going to probably have we have a above average year of overdose deaths in Lamoille County this year. And if it wasn't for Narcan, just based on what law enforcement is doing and the deployments of Narcan with law enforcement, I think that number would just go sky high. I think the CDC said since I think it was March of 19, Vermont has seen an 85% increase in overdose deaths. So still very, very serious. The Sheriff's Department continues to collaborate with the Department of Health on a drug take-back program. And I think you've heard some of those numbers. One thing that, Dave, I'll just clarify something you said is we don't exactly know what it is we're seizing. And there was a program just before COVID hit in which we were going to have the Department of Health was going to have I think it was a pharmaceutical school out of Albany, Michelle, that we're going to actually, they did so a couple of times, and they took samples, random samples of the, hundreds of boxes that we have, and they went through them and inventoried what was there. So we were trying to get a basis to, well, how much of that is opioid, how much of it is over the counter and everything. So that is something I think that we still collectively want to do. And that'll just give us a little bit better of an idea there. So pretty soon we're going to, I hope as early as next week, we're going to have a school resource officer back into Lamoille Union High School, which have had a challenging year thus far. And so, and we're very, very, as far as law enforcement goes, we're very, very blessed to have the support of the Lamoille North District here with that. And in general, I guess, just to say that we're working very, very closely together with the other law enforcement agencies in the county. I think the people of the county are well served by law enforcement here. And, I think there's a recognition that with COVID, you don't hear as much about the crisis. Opioid crisis, for example, was the main topic before COVID hit, and that sort of isn't heard about as much in the daily news broadcast. But I'm here to tell you, it's here. It's worse than ever, and it's going to take all of us to keep our kids on track. So thank you.
Thanks, Roger. Appreciate that and all the work that you and the deputies are doing on that effort. Now we want to ask the new executive director of NCVRC. I think I got the initials right that time, Shannon. Shannon Karshidi. So Shannon, go ahead, please.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Good to see you. So thank you, Roger, for kind of opening up and shedding some light on kind of what's going on in the county. I don't know if I have much more to share other than, that we are continuing to experience challenges and obviously kind of similar to what Roger was saying and what we're experiencing. We did see an uptick in numbers as far as guests inquiring and seeking services for peer recovery coaching. So we saw a significant increase in September and October for that, which is good. Numbers continue to stay consistent with those that we're seeing at the emergency department at Copley. And, I had a few conversations yesterday of, a lot of our guests that we are experiencing interactions with are experiencing homelessness. And so that continues to be on the forefront for us as well. Because as we continue to try to engage and keep them in contact with us, it is challenging when they're faced with that, not having shelter, and then that leads to not having phones. So we just continue to try to support them the best that we can, navigating through those resources. and continuing to receive many requests for Narcan, which I think is really good as far as community partners. We've done probably 5 demonstrations in the last month with local libraries, at Jenna's house, with different community partners. So we continue just to, try to continue educating in that area as well, because that can obviously save someone's life. So I think, we're getting into this holiday season again, where this is where we tend to see holidays are really hard for folks struggling with substance use disorder. We've been very fortunate that we've been able to gear safely services back in person again. So the majority of everything we've been able to add more meetings on. So we're doing that as safely as we can with COVID and mandating masks in our facilities to keep everyone safe. But I think that's all I've got. Does anyone have any questions for me?
There's one question that says, can the fentanyl strips detect its presence in marijuana?
They cannot.
No, Michelle's saying no. Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Michelle.
Shannon. And you touched on a couple of barriers there, we know, to recovery, which is housing and employment. So it's a good segue into a man and a team that's trying to work on that from the inside out. Mr. Tatro, do you have anything that you'd like to share about the work of Jenna's Promise? And
well, we're just fairly new here, I guess, but we do think that safe housing and a safe place to work is essential to recovery. And I think our success rates are pretty high comparatively to other things that are going on here, I guess. So, we're just keep on building. We've got our second recovery home up and running now. It's a step up from the start. Where you start, there's more rules, and the first 30 days are kind of isolated, but not totally. But yeah, and then the JP's Promising Goods, the ladies come over there and work, and then we get them off to another place. I think we've got a couple working at Copley Hospital now, one at Smugs, Hannaford's maybe, and I don't know the rest of them, but there's only a couple ladies, women, whatever is proper here, to that aren't working, and that's because they just arrived not long ago. But one of them is going to start packing coffee at Jenna's Promise Roasting Company tomorrow, so that'll be her first day out. And I think that's critical for our legislatures to think about, is how do we fund and move forward with safe housing and safe place to work, and maybe we could even certify certain places to work that are drug-free or are thinking the same way as we do. So other than that, I guess we're just going. We had a successful grand opening, which I think opened a lot of eyes to what's going on. We talked to a lot of people about the struggles that people have, and had some good turnout. So we're working the best we can, as hard as we can, to try to change this direction. And thank you, guys.
thanks, Greg. And I think most of our legislators that were on the call here today were also part of the Working Communities Challenge strategic initiative that we had there a couple of weeks ago. And I know that part of the outcome of that was a couple of work groups dedicated to recovery safe or recovery accepting workplaces, as well as a housing subgroup that comes out of that. And I'll just say one little word that we all can relate to, and that's Act 250. Is a barrier that you'll hear more about it, I'm sure, from our legislative friends. So thank you, Greg. I do want to just be conscious of the time. We've got about 15 minutes left. We've got a couple more folks from our team that want to share a couple of things with you about how you can help this cause and help this effort in your role as a legislator. And then I want to sort of provide an opportunity for each of you to either respond to things you've heard today or ask from us as stakeholders in this effort what we can do to support you. So first up is Mr. Neese.
Hi there. First of all, I hope everyone is looking around at this group of people and seeing the extraordinary gathering that this really is. We are really lucky in the Valley. As I as I contemplate retirement here at the end of December, this is a really special group of people who are doing very special things, and I think that needs to be acknowledged. So what I'm hoping in your efforts as legislators is a couple things. One, please, by all means, protect the money that's going into prevention. Without prevention efforts, things that are bad now just get worse. And I think that it's important just to keep that at the forefront of your minds as you go forward with this. Secondly, and maybe even just as importantly, is I'm hoping that you guys will take a statewide approach to implementing Act 164, not a municipality by municipality approach. I think that's a gross mistake. I think we know it's a gross mistake. We have immediate examples of how much of a mistake it is in the mask mandates that may or may not exist town to town. This is a statewide issue. The legalization of cannabis is a statewide issue. It has statewide impacts, not municipality by municipality impacts. So depending on select boards to make decisions about public policy, public health, just doesn't make any sense. That's what legislatures are for, is to make statewide decisions about things that have statewide impact. And with that, I'll shut up, but I want to just one more time say, this is a special thing that's happening here in the Valley. And I think it should be valued and embraced and promoted. Thanks.
Thank you, Floyd. And congratulations on retirement. And if you get bored, you'd be a great foster parent for Laraway Youth and Family Services. So you just give me a ring if you need some downtime filled. Jess, I think you're the next speaker here.
Yeah, and I think I actually probably already said it near the beginning, but just, know that when you're in Montpelier, if you need resources, if something's coming across your desk, and you're like, we don't know a lot about this topic. And if it's substance related, just know that we really try to just find the actual facts. We try to find unbiased information, and that we're happy to do some of that legwork for you, so that you can go into your votes informed. And now we're actually at that point of, if you have questions that you'd like to find out more, we'd love to hear them, and we'll do our best to answer them.
All right, anything from any of our legislative folks? I'm doing my best Zoom scan here of Dan Noyes. There you go. Thanks, Dan.
I'll break the ice, I guess. Hey, thanks everyone for this. It's really been helpful, and to have these discussions before we go into session, and really appreciate all the work that you're all doing. And I've talked to I think I've talked just about everybody here. Human services, we look a lot at prevention in my committee. So it's something that I'm very supportive of, and hope we can continue to make those investments. So doors always open with me, so everyone can definitely always looking for information on how we make these decisions. So thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Representative Lucy, thank you for being with us today.
Thanks. Yeah, similar to Dan, I don't have a question right now. I just wanted to thank you all for the work that you're doing, and also for this last hour of what you've presented to us. So thanks.
Thank you for joining us. Representative Kate, thanks for raising your hand.
Hey, how's it going? Sorry, it takes a minute to unmute. How's it going, Kate Donnelly? Yeah, just echoing gratitude for the work that you guys are all doing. I did want to underscore something that I think Michelle dropped in the chat, which is just the impact of stigma on certainly on our youth as it relates to substance use and mental health. I just was meeting with a young person in my clinical practice yesterday who I've been working with for quite a while now. We have a really, really solid and trusting relationship, and just yesterday disclosed to me that they had for months been concerned about their substance use, but only now that they had a job and were much more well connected socially and were actually doing really well, did they sort of have the confidence and felt a sense of comfort in sharing that with me. So this is even in therapeutic relationships that are really strong, and the reason they voiced that it was stigma that prevented them from being able to talk with me openly about this. So can only imagine how difficult it is for them to talk to a teacher or someone they may be less connected to, or to seek help. So thinking about how we address that. I did have a question. I don't mean to put Em on the spot. I thought I heard a passing statement about the YRBS surveys being slimmed down over the last couple of years, and I wasn't sure if I heard that correctly, and if so, I was curious to hear a little bit more about how those have changed.
Yeah, so in the 2017 YRBS, there were quite a lot of data points that we found extremely helpful around use and perceptions of harm and how substances are being acquired, how they're being used, and various other risk factors surrounding substance use. In the 2019 results, we were eagerly updating our documents, our logic models, our data packets, and just finding that there were some data points that we just don't have anymore, that we couldn't, we did not have updated information about it. I think there's been, concerted effort to make the survey easier, much shorter, to facilitate it being filled out, I guess. But, we're losing complexity, and we're losing the ability to, from state data, to form that complete picture of what's going on in the community. And looking at the survey that was done this year that we'll get, we're going to get the results of down the road, kind of seemed even worse in terms of, just going through it, trying to find those data points and realizing, that the number of questions actually being asked about substance use is just dwindling, and not entirely consistent across substances, which is also something that I was finding concerning, because we're losing the ability to compare substance to substance in that regard.
Thanks, Em. Did that answer your question, Kate?
Yeah, I did. I have more questions about it, but maybe it's something we can take outside of this meeting. I'd just be curious. I just want to understand more about how we might be able to sort of shore up that. I think YRBS is a really helpful survey that impacts a lot of different spaces. So getting that really clear would be great. I will just add really quickly in terms of the question about contact. Because of the committee I'm on, this is an area that I'm interested in and passionate about, but it's not necessarily always in front of me in the legislature. And so I would just say, if there's things that are coming up, or there's specific bills that you want to be working on, or that language is developing around, or things that are happening actively in the legislature, feel free to I'll put my info in, but you can call or text me or email me probably my Gmail account, because our ledge email gets so flooded, especially during the legislative session. So text and email on my private email are probably the best ways to catch me. And that just helps alert me that my my attention needs to go to a particular place in that moment. So thanks.
Thanks, Kate. Avram, you've had your hand raised, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah. First of all, I also want to just thank everybody for the work you do, and it's another example of the dedication and coordination that occurs in Lamoille County, in the Lamoille Valley, that doesn't necessarily occur to the same extent in other places. I had a very specific question. I don't know if we have time for it now. Someone could shoot me an email. But I was curious about when we were talking about fentanyl earlier, and the mention, I think it was Sheriff Mark who mentioned that now that marijuana is being laced with it as well. I am, this is not my area of expertise. It's not the committee I serve on. I do understand, I think, why people lace certain drugs with fentanyl. I was a little bit, I guess, surprised about marijuana because I don't understand who benefits by doing that. And so that's just a very specific question that I'm sure someone has the answer to, and you can send me a quick email.
Great. Thanks, Abram. Senator Westman.
So this is a rather specific question. And my information is about a year old, but there was a group of students, particularly in the Burlington area, that were quite critical of what was being done around discouraging vaping, and said that a lot of the materials that were handed out were still more focused on traditional cigarettes than on vaping itself. And I'm very interested in figuring out how we can support financially from the legislature an effort that would more focus on vaping, because vaping is what the students are now moving towards, and very few are smoking traditional cigarettes. So anything you can provide me about what effort we're doing to change our focus and move more towards vaping, and help me understand how I can support things that move towards vaping, because a huge number of our students are moving towards that as like the first rung of something. And I want to make sure that what we're doing is hitting right at where they're moving. And so any help I can get to understand that better would be great.
Jessica, do you want me to take any of that briefly, and Brian can too? Great. I remember sitting in a room with you and a couple of students, not too long ago. So the state does have a program. It's Unhyped. We can send you this information. And there's also obviously 802 Quits that has a youth prevention line. But as for the state, I think you're right. And I would be excited to share, from our other coalitions and from our coalition, what we're doing locally that could be taken to a state level. Brian, is Brian still there? Yeah. We have created some great resources that we can share with you that are local, that are attractive for youth. But, really it is about the relationship building for our youth to even move towards cessation or the prevention piece. So, someone seeing a sign of, text this app or whatever it is, it's harder to make that jump if it's not in one of those, trusted relationships. So there are lots of things that we can discuss working on, and in particular flavors. I think, it's not just about the marketing of cessation, it's about prevention. And so flavors, including menthol. Menthol is a flavor, and it has been targeted. BIPOC populations have been targeted with menthol. And we have all of the data that shows that. So in any type of legislation looking at flavors, I think we've looked at changing even terminology, not flavors and menthol, but menthol and other flavors, in the prevention, tobacco control community, talking about putting menthol up first, because, if other flavors are dropped, menthol is still there. And that's the one that the kids are going to go to. Brian, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I mean, all that what you said, I agree with, but I think, I bet I have created a lot of resources that have been specifically for vaping. And I think, like you said, I think the state 802 Quits and stuff could possibly have more vaping stuff than just traditional tobacco. I guess that would be my one request. Like some of those resources could be a little more up to date.
Yeah, I would just say it's students that were critical of what was being done because they see all their friends vaping, and there's still a significant amount of the resources going into cigarettes themselves, which they don't, their friends are all taking up vaping.
Well, thank you all again. I recognize we're at the end of the time, and in fact, we're 60 seconds over, so I appreciate that. I guess in closing and wrap up, I would just leave you with an acknowledgement that I know this is just one of the issues that you all have in trying to govern our state. It seems that we have more and more resource issues. And so trying to figure out where to allocate those resources is certainly not a small task. And I think we all acknowledge that. I can only imagine what it's like to try to, feed that many mouths, so to speak, and don't necessarily envy any of the situations that you all encounter on a regular basis. But I guess I would just leave you with, the old saying that an ounce of prevention is a pound of cure. And I think that if we're really going to cut the head off this snake, the little stat that Jessica put in there that 90% of adults that are misusing substances experimented when they were under the age of 18. So if we're really going to try to do anything to turn the curve and to make our environments more healthy in the long run, it's really about preventing the problem in the first place. We can continue to sink money into recovery and treatment, and that's going to be necessary, certainly. But if we're gonna fix this problem long term, we've got to help people understand to avoid and not get hooked on the stuff in the first place. So I'll leave you all with that. Thank you all. Appreciate you taking an hour out of your busy schedules. Our HLV people are willing, able, and very interested to continue any of these conversations. And we certainly appreciate our local legislators being so accessible to us as partners. So without further ado, happy December. Hopefully you all have winter tires. We'll see you all next time. Thank you.